Colin Kazim-Richards. Who's that, you may ask? Well, he's a 37-year-old Turkish English striker who's currently a free agent. And what makes him interesting to you is the fact that your club, Kaizer Chiefs, and SuperSport United have apparently held talks with his representatives on a potential move of the player coming to join Kaizer Chiefs. We're going to look at other details about this transfer, and we're also going to look at the pros and cons of this player coming to Kaizer Chiefs, which is interesting. We're also going to talk about Brendan Peterson's psychological issues and what is actually currently happening with him. Is he staying? Is he leaving Kaizer Chiefs? We'll talk about it. Hello and welcome to Kosi Nation Fan TV. I am Pelo, I am your host, and this is where fans meet and talk about Kaizer Chiefs. Amakosi Football Club. So according to Goal, who are usually very reliable when it comes to reporting this news, this striker, who I've never heard of, is now trying to come back to Kaizer Chiefs. And if you know me, the moment we say a 37-year-old player is coming to Kaizer Chiefs, I'm always going to say, give me a zero, ma'am. Because a 37-year-old coming to Kaizer Chiefs, how many seasons is it going to give us? How many seasons? Like, what is it going to give us? Really, I'm asking, because right now, tactically, what Chiefs are trying to do is at some point press up front. And we already saw a player like Kamapiliat, he wasn't really doing the pressing. And because of that, if a player doesn't have the legs anymore, they are not really going to contribute to the team. However, someone will argue and say, Mpilo, we're talking about a player here who has played for a development system of Arsenal. You're talking about a player here who has played for Brighton, a player who's played for Fenerbahce and Toulouse, and all of those. By the way, Toulouse is a team that plays in France. And all of those teams, a lot of teams that he has played for in Europe. But then my argument would also be, look at how long he spends in each team. He spends like 1 year, then he moves on. Then 1 year, then he moves on. So what I end up seeing about him as a player is that he just has good agents more than him being a good player, because you just look at his go-to transfer market. Look at how many teams he's played for. It's a lot. And that means he has not consistently performed good enough for these other teams to get him. And I know people will say, Mpilo, think about it. Our strikers are misfiring and would probably benefit from him coming to Kaizer Chiefs, because we might even convert him to a striker coach. But come on, for you to even be a striker coach, your record must be impressive, scoring goals for other teams. But you look at his record and it doesn't look so great. And also, the other thing is that he's a foreign player. He has dual citizenship. Foreign, he's a Turkish, was born in London, England, but he also has Turkish citizenship. So he's a foreigner. So are you really telling me that we are going to open up a foreign sport just to bring someone who might or might not perform? People are already complaining about Gonzalez. We're not going to sign 2 foreign strikers who might not do anything for us, because if we release someone in January to accommodate him, then what if he's worse than the person that we're going to release? In this case, Gonzalez. At least Gonzalez has years in his side and he can still get better. But at 37, where are you going to go from 37? I really don't think this is a good idea. And obviously, Kaizer Chiefs would think this is a good idea because of the fact that he's a free agent and they like pouncing on those free agents. So I don't think it's a good idea. But what do you think before we talk about Brendan Peterson? Now, Brendan Peterson, we've all seen his mistakes this season. And one thing that I always say about these players, one is that they are professionals and they should carry themselves in ways that show to us that they are trying at least. And I would be lying if I said Brendan Peterson does not try. Like, we've seen Brendan Peterson making crazy amount of saves, like saving us a lot of times. There were games like the 2-0 win against Stellenbosch where he made a lot of saves, and he kept a clean sheet. And then the weekend came, and then he was back to making poor decisions again. And then this season has been Brendan Peterson, even last season, making 10 good saves and then making one stupid mistake. And fans will remember the goal that you conceded more than the goals that you prevented. And also, as much as we can say Brendan Peterson saved us 10 times and only gave us away or sold us out once, people are going to remember that one time. But if you continue doing that thing and it becomes a pattern that you make 10 mistakes and concede one stupid goal, it accumulates and fans end up shouting at you unfairly. And also, given the fact that there is the man called Itumeleng Kune, I'm not saying it's his fault. I'm saying given the fact that our fan base like Kune so much, even when Kune makes mistakes or does the same thing, the exact same thing that Brendan Peterson does, they will not say anything. As I've said, and as you guys all know, I've been to stadiums in each and every game this season. And according to how Chiefs are trying to play, since they are playing such a high line and during corners, the keeper pushes up and sometimes is in the halfway line or close to the halfway line. Every time Brendan Peterson does that, there are boos and people shouting, telling him to go back to goal. But when Kune does that, no one shouts. And I'm like, why are we having a problem with Peterson when he does that, but we don't have a problem with Kune doing that? Is the problem the keeper or is the problem like is it Kune or is it just you being worried about the positioning of the keeper? Because basically both keepers are applying the same tactic, which is don't stay in goal because these guys are going to try and hit us on a counter. And if you're in goal, then the striker is likely to reach the ball first before you, and then you might consider goal. But if you're not in goal, then you can play as a super keeper and clear that ball away. No, our fans, they will shout at one keeper, but they will not do it to the other keeper. And all of these things and the mistakes that he's been making, the recent one being the one against Golden Arrows, they eventually get to you. And now, Brendan Peterson, after Calvin Johnson had said that he's going to continue backing him, he's going to continue having him as a starter, apparently he's psychological, he's psych, like he's thinking psychologically he's not fine. And Kune said that to Sunday Times, and now he's attending therapy sessions with the coach, not the coach, the psychologist that they brought in. And it's always difficult, man, because at the end of the day, the whole team, Kaizer Chiefs, is not playing well. Like, at the end of the day, we will see the mistake that Peterson makes, but we forget that when he considered the goal against Sundowns, they were playing a back pass to him. And yes, we can talk about Shalulile not being in the right position, but it was a back pass by how we're playing, by our defenders. He was not protected. Shalulile wins the ball back, he scores. Against Arrows, the ground is muddy. They play the ball back to him, and then he slips, and then Umtizo ends up winning the ball, he scores. So two very similar goals where we were playing a back pass to Peterson. Also, against Sundowns, the very first mistake he made this season, again, there was an offside there, but it was a back pass to him, and then he failed to pick the right pass. But now you have 3 mistakes that he made this season so far, which could have been avoided by not playing a back pass, right? So there are things that the team could have done also to help the keeper, because at the end of the day, each player has his strengths and his weaknesses. For example, the best, the GOAT, the greatest of all times, Lionel Messi. I know Ronaldo fanboys will not like this. Messi's strength, he will create, he will score, he will do everything. But he will not mark at all. If you are playing with Messi in your team, essentially defensively you are playing with 9 players, because he won't bother. He will not. And Neymar does the same thing. He doesn't mark. And then Mbappe does the same thing. He doesn't mark. When Messi does that playing for Argentina, there's Rodrigo de Paul who's taking the extra heavy load, and McAllister coming across to take on the heavy load from Messi. When Mbappe is playing for France, usually teams are sitting deep, and France will switch into a back three to kind of compensate for Mbappe being up front and not marking on the left side. So effectively, Hernandez is marking on his own, so they're going to need someone who's going to assist on the left. During the World Cup, Argentina exploited that weakness, and because of that, Mbappe ended up playing as a number 9, and they took Giroud out and they played Kolo Muani on the left so that Kolo Muani can track back and mark. Brazil, the same thing. They end up playing Neymar as a 10 or as a false 9 so that on the sides they can play someone like Vinicius who doesn't mind going back and marking. What am I trying to say by all of this? I'm trying to say here, I'm talking about 3 of the very best players in this current generation. Obviously, I'm not a big fan of, I don't watch Portugal, and so I wouldn't know how they compensate for him, because they end up benching Ronaldo in any case, or sometimes they play him as a 9 so that he doesn't play in wings to avoid that, to avoid him working hard as a winger. Basically, place him as a target man. But what is this doing? You are basically compensating for the player's weaknesses by making sure that the team are not making him get exploited by having Mbappe track back to mark. He doesn't like doing that. And that is why PSG got destroyed so much, because they had Mbappe, Messi, and Neymar in the same team. And even though they're winning against Real Madrid, the fact that 3 players were not marking and effectively are defending with 7 players, then they were always going to get exposed. And with Kaizer-Chiefs, if I bring it back to Chiefs, now you have all these players always playing back passes to a keeper who's clearly not comfortable on the ball. What are you expecting? What are you expecting? So yes, Peterson has made his mistakes, but we can also do something to save him from making these mistakes over and over again. And I can only hope that now that he's attending these psychological sessions or therapy sessions, that he can do better. Do you think Peterson will still come back and be Kaizer-Chiefs' number 1 goalkeeper, or do you think it's just done? Do you think he's leaving Kaizer-Chiefs or not? Let me know down on the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, remember, equals Alpelumoy.